Is that the biggest challenge of our generation, that like we're just too disconnected? Is that what it is, or it would be something
very
else?
much what it is? It's very much what it is. People are very busy, and people are very exposed to the outside world, and people feel goyish to a certain degree. You know, they're very into the news, they're very into the media, they're very into what's going on, they're very into a world that's alien to us. And people are exposed to things that they were never exposed to in life, and they get carried away. And then it gets increasingly difficult to be anchored and to feel living a Yiddish life.
Rabbi Shmuel Zucker is a prominent Rav in Ramat Eshkol and seems to have found a unique spiritual fire that is spreading quickly. We have a lot of inspiration stories on this show, but this week is different. This is a practical conversation on how to be a successful frum Jew in 2025. We don't shy away from talking about subjects that we as individuals struggle with and discuss how to approach it. Please leave in the comments which city you live in, because we're actually really curious for this episode where the audience is. Flatbush, Ramat Eshkol, Los Angeles, Toronto. Where are you? You'll also hear about BitBean, what I believe is the best software company in the world, Twillory, the clothing smart people buy, Feldheim's 10% code, and books that you need on your shelves, and of course, PZ Deals, the app that's saving you from paying full price. This week's episode is in memory of Miriam Sarah Bas Yaakov Moshe and Shimon David ben Yaakov Shlomo. Here we go. I'm Yaakov Langer, and you're listening to Inspiration for the Nation. Thank you so much, Rabbi Zucker, for coming to do this. It's a big honor for me.
Hashem.
So I have a lot of questions about a lot of different big topics that are going on in Klal Yisrael. But first, for the few people that don't know the Rav, could the Rav tell us about his background and how he got to being a Rav in Ramat Eshkol and becoming Hasidish?
It's a long journey.
Yeah.
I was raised in London, in England. I went to regular cheder system. Come from my parents. Father Hashem was more Litvish, but we had a lot of Hasidim in the family, and we actually originate from Hasidim. My father's grandfather was Hasidish. He moved to Germany for business purposes. So my father's father, who later came to England, he was raised in Germany. So he adapted a lot of more minhagim from the Yekisha world, and he didn't practice. But again, he was a Yid, and towards the end of his life, he did learn he had a lot of chavrusas, he learned Hasidish Sfarim, etc. So the Hasidish world wasn't new to me. But my father learned in Panovich. He left London by ship, and he went to Panovich, and he was a Talmud of the Panovich Rosh Yeshivas. And it's something that you just are born with. In other words, I went to the cheder that I went to was more of a Hamish cheder, but then high school I went to was not at all. And then I went to Gateshead, and automatically I just blended into the more Hasidish crowd in Gateshead. They happened then to have been from the very good part of the yeshiva. One of my friends from school and from yeshiva in Gateshead was Rabbi Shmuel Morgenstern, who I've known for my whole life. So, it wasn't a transition, so to speak. But I definitely felt that it's the Hasidic world, and living the life of a Chassid adds a terrific amount to a person, because it opens a person up to look at Judaism as a big picture. Hasidim put an emphasis on davening, obviously, and they put an emphasis on even before davening. They put an emphasis on trying to make everything that a person does during his day, try to connect it spiritually and to make out of it in avodas Hashem. Other societies, basically, they may focus mainly on Torah, obviously, which is Talmud Torah connected to Kulam, obviously unanimously. But sometimes that gives, and I had personal experiences of seeing people in yeshiva when I was in yeshiva, of people that were very smart and were very good in learning, but they were lacking in their commitment and their davening and their general commitment. And that contradiction really disturbed me very much. And after I learned in yeshiva in Gateshead for around 4 years, I came to Yerushalayim. I got to know certain tzaddikim that Hashem sent my way, and made a very large impact on my life, and it changed around my life. And from then I learned in the Mir. I learned in Ber Yaakov under Moshe Shapir Zatzal. I learned in the Mir under Rebbe Finkel, Rebbe Nosson Zvi Finkel, and I was in the Shir of Rebbe Eli Baruch Finkel. But so I was in the regular system, living a life of Baruch Hashem of a yeshiva bacha, and I just felt that it came to Shabbosim and it came to that type of thing. It greatly enhanced my avoda, my passion to Yiddishkeit by connecting to those tzaddikim, and I was learning in the Mir. So there was a lot of, used to go to the Nesiv Shalom to his tish, to the Toldasar, and it greatly enhanced my life. And I saw it enhancing my learning. I saw it enhancing, giving me a different fire and a different vigor and a different love, even for learning, whatever type of learning it was. It just brings a person has a good davening in the morning, he gets up, ready to go. So it's a process, you got to learn Sfarim and etc. But once that's done, it just makes the whole day into a different day.
Does the Rav think that is like a personal journey that the Rav went on, or it's something that any Yid who grows up, being from, that kind of like Avram, like the mission is to lech lecha, like get out of what you're used to, even if what you're used to is the right thing. It could be a chassid listening to this, and not saying to leave Chassidus or someone lives to leave it, but is it the right path for us to always try to get out of our comfort zone?
No. It's true to say that in today the world is generally nushing from a lot of places outside their comfort zone. It doesn't necessarily mean they're leaving their comfort zone. And when one goes to somebody like Ritzvim Zilberberg, or go to these places, you see a nice percentage of them who are non-Hasidim. And it's not an issue of leaving one's comfort zone. And even myself, it took a while. It was a process. I wasn't acting Hasidish when I was a Bach in Yeshiva. It was gradual. And even when I got married, I was very Hasidish in my heart. But it's definitely gradual. And a person today doesn't have to leave his comfort zone, doesn't have to feel he's leaving his comfort zone if he wants to go to listen to Rabbi Biederman and these types of people. He's not considered leaving his comfort zone. Definitely in our generation, there's definitely a need for the warmth. And there are people in the more Lubavitcher system also coming to that conclusion and also giving that warmth. But it's definitely true to say that there is a big surge, towards people that are thirsty for this type of wellspring of Torah. And on the contrary, I tell my own Talmidim, when they get into and they enjoy learning, let's say Hasidic Sfarim, I discourage them leaving their comfort zone. And say you can learn, and the regular daily schedule of Yeshiva Bacha is the same, whether he's Hasidic or whether he's not Hasidic. Everybody has to get up in time for davening, possibly even earlier for davening. Everybody has to learn properly his first Seder, his second Seder, his night Seder. And you have to eat healthy and learn healthy, and everyone has to do that. There's no comfort zones. That's unanimous across the board. The differences between them is more marginal, small differences, which can eventually, if a person feels that this gives him a lot, and after a while, after years possibly, he feels that he's on track and he still feels very, very, very connected, and he feels it's really helping him and it's really elevating him in a good way and in a healthy way. So by all means, go for it. And then that becomes his comfort zone. In other words, it's always a disadvantage, a person who actually leaves his zone and goes into a different zone. Gradually it can become his zone, and then it becomes his zone in a healthy way.
I know the shul and the Rav is very passionate about davening, and I didn't get the chus yet to daven there, Mirch Hashem, but for an outsider, for someone who's not connecting to davening, what advice would the Rav have?
So first of all, a person who's not connecting to davening in our generation it's problematic, because davening is warmth, davening is fire, davening is connection, and there's so many distractions. Today people lived a much more Yiddish life, and people were less knowledgeable before the war, and they had a lot less, so to speak, of knowledge in halach and everything, and yet they were God-fearing and they were passionate about their Yiddishkeit. Today, there's so much passion out there, and there's so much negative passion out there, that it's vitally important for a person to feel a passion and to develop a certain passion, because otherwise a person can get carried away. There's many more nisyonis today than there were once upon a time. And in order for a person to be anchored, he's got to enjoy what he's doing. And of course, there's a level of a person doing it because he has to do it. And yira is always there, and it's a balance. But it's much easier to get carried away because there's so many things that entice a person. And so sometimes it's very difficult for a person to stay, so to speak, like in a more disciplined type of feeling of Yiddishkeit, where there's so many attractions out there that are, for a young boy, are very attractive to him. So tefillah is passion and is vitally important. And Baruch Hashem, the revolution that the Kehillah has actually made is, Baruch Hashem, the whole kehillah is based on. It's not a Hasidic kehillah as such. It's in Ramat Eshkol, and it's basically feeding a population over there that came and just felt a certain fire that they needed. And a lot of people were unaware that they needed it. A lot of people have told me that they were totally unaware that they needed it. And it made such an impact and it made such a change in their lives. Even if they're coming just for Shabbos, we have a minyan during the week as well, but if they're coming just for Shabbos, it made such an impact on them that it changed. They didn't even know what they were missing.
What is the difference? Because the way the davening goes is it's like more, obviously there's an aspect of year, but there's more ahava in there. Is that the nuance?
There's a lot of year as well. There's life. The tefillah is full of life over there. And there's a chayas, there's a life, it's lebedik, and there's a feeling this is the real thing. Today there's a lot of people, Baruch Hashem, a lot of Shomer Torah mitzvahs, but does a person feel this is kihem chayenu? And, that's something that needs chizuk today. For the person to feel kihem chayenu, that when a person feels that this is his life, he's right into it. And, the kehillah, there's a certain vibe, lebedik means lively, means life. There's a certain vibe over there that people feel that this is life. They feel that their life has changed from this type of davening. So it's a davening. It's not just a davening. It's definitely not the type of davening that's all ahava, like a lot of the happy minyanim. It's balanced. There's ahava and there's yira, and it's very balanced over there. It's a very erlich davening. It's a very ernst davening. But it's a davening that's also got a lot of ahava. It's just a davening that's got a lot of simcha, it's got a lot of chayes, it's got a lot of chiyas. And that's very, very important for a person. Also, when you're raising children and you're bringing children to shul, it's very important for children to see that the kihem chayenu aspect of it, which is obviously for Talmud Torah, but it's in all areas of Avodas Hashem. When a child sees that this is his, and the same goes for, a father at home, Shabbos at home, a child has to feel that when the father sings Zmiros, the father's emotional, the father makes Kiddush, the father's into it. He's into his Avodas Hashem. He's into the Chanukah. It's not just, playing games and playing dreidel and eating donuts. There's a certain passion to it. There's a certain build up to it, leading up to it, talking about it, revealing insights about it. And that brings a person to a feeling that he feels that this is alive. And that's very much what people feel when they walk into the shul.
Would the Rav say that is I think there's a lot of challenges in every generation, but is that the biggest challenge of our generation, that we're just too disconnected? Is that what it is, or it would be something
very
else?
Much what it is. It's very much what it is. People are very busy and people are very exposed to the outside world, and people feel goyish to a certain degree. They're very into the news, they're very into the media, they're very into what's going on, they're very into a world that's alien to us. And it gets to a point where they get so excited about it that they get a chiyas from it. And then you can't have a chiyas in both areas. You're allowed to listen to the news, you're allowed to know what's going on. But people, it's not just news, it's everything else. It's media in general, it's the street in general. And people are exposed to things that they were never exposed to in life, and they get carried away. And then it gets increasingly difficult to be anchored and to feel living a Yiddish life. So there's so many people, Baruch Hashem, that are Shomer Torah mitzvahs, but what needs a big chizuk is to actually to feel that this is the thing.
What's beautiful about, I think, Yiddishkeit now is that because of the advancements, maybe I don't know if it's technology or maybe just the world, like we in some way I guess we're disconnected, but in a way we're connected, that like what the Rebbe was saying, that you could have a Litvish person and then getting very connected with this Hasidish Rav or Rebbe or vice versa, and the Jewish cultures, I guess, are blending in a good way. And so one of the things that I, again, I'm just taking from my perspective, that I see is like there are a lot of these, like, I guess, happy minyanim and serving Hashem in a way out of ahava. And then there's the other way of Talmud Torah and learning, and there seems to be some more of like blending, but there's also seems to be like sometimes each world goes to extremes, and there's value in that. Let's say a happy minyan. I'm not no particular one, but like it seems like there's something also missing. Like I don't know if it's the avodah sasha. Like is that happening because things are just becoming more extreme?
The happy minyanim, these types. I mean, I mentioned. I didn't mean to. I didn't mean to designate
I'm just
anything.
using,
The idea of the happy minyanim is it serves a purpose, and it serves a very real purpose. In other words, there are a lot of people that wouldn't come to shul otherwise. And the happy minyanim, even if they don't do that much davening there, it's definitely bringing them into shul, and they definitely wouldn't come to shul. There are people that because of their youth, because they were forced to coming to shul, or because they didn't feel it, because it wasn't a davening that spoke to them. So people get traumatized from going to shul.
Yeah, and I get it. No, my parents did a good job, but I think my generation, when the children of Holocaust survivors, they survived, and okay, you got to just do what you got to do, and it was a mahalach, but there's residual trauma there.
That's right. So the happy minyanim are serving a purpose, a sacred purpose of bringing people that would never otherwise go to shul. And that's true for a lot of types of minyanim. It's good and it's helpful and it's doing great work, but the person has to know, and even a rabbi of one of these shuls has to know, that it's good to bring the person to shul, but he has to move on. And there is a point where a person has to move on. For a person to daven all his life in a happy minyan, so he should be moving on. So every one of these types of ideas, it's also the modern Orthodox type of society here in America is also similar. After the war, there's a lot of people that if they wouldn't have been this concept of modern Orthodoxy, they weren't moving to Lakewood, and they weren't going to daven in a regular shul, and it was a bridge, and it bridged, and it brought them into Torah, brought them into davening, it brought them into Orthodoxy, it brought them into things which so it's a similar idea. But so these minyanim, it's very good. It's very good. It's serving its purpose, but a person has to move on. It's not a long term thing. So all these different types of things there in Yiddishkeit, like you say, there's a lot of merger going on. It's all serving a purpose. But a person's always got to be climbing, and a person's always got to be moving forward. Which
is a challenge because, I guess just the way Hashem made us, that we like to grow, and then once we get to a certain point, it's like, okay, now I'm finally comfortable, and Hashem's like, nope, there's more to grow.
So look, if it's a shul which is a regular shul, and a person's comfortable there, and he comes there and he davens and he's comfortable, fine. But again, we're not generalizing about all the happy minyanim, but there are a lot of happy minyanim where there's a lot of talking and there's not much davening, and there's a nice l'chaim, and there's so there, common sense says that a person should be moving on from there. And if a person comes there honestly knowing that, and I know they are such, I know friends of mine who are rabbonim in such shuls, and they counsel, they ask me, about this type of idea. What do you do about talking? What do you do about this? What do you climb down on, etc.? It's very delicate and it's very balanced, because you don't want to turn them away and they won't come to shul at all. But so you have to encourage, you have to be makar of them, obviously. But at the same time, it has to be crystal clear that this is not the end of the journey. This is the beginning of the journey, and it's nice and it's comfortable. And the Rebbe Shlomo Carlebach was makar of so many people. And he himself used to send people on. He himself used to say, you can't stay here anymore. You're ready to move on. So so it's the same thing with everything. There are shuls, kehillas, or that type of thing. There are certain standards in Yiddishkeit that a person realizes once he realizes that this is not the tachlis. But it's good that it's there. Otherwise, those people would never come forward.
I know the Rav is very passionate about Ahavas Yisrael. And I want to start with, what's the proper hashkafa, the proper perspective of, unfortunately, there's always seems to be some form of machlekes in Eretz Yisrael, and especially like that I'm here in America. I don't really know what goes on, but you have people that are in the army and their kids are in the army and they're very passionate about that. And they're like, oh, everyone, should go to the army. And then you have people in yeshiva and they're saying, hey, like we believe there's a spiritual battle and a physical battle, and we're on the same team, but we need Torah. How do we bridge that divide?
Well, first of all, it has to be made crystal clear that even from our side, that the soldiers have a big schus and they're putting their life online. And in other words, there has to be that feeling that we care for them, we daven for them. We're terribly stressed, or Rahman al-Islam, when you hear news of soldiers falling. And this has to be made crystal clear, and not just that they should hear it, but it has to be made crystal clear for us that we have to pain the life, chas v'shalom, that's lost of a soldier, and and they are fighting, and they're risking their lives so that we can sit in Eretz Yisrael and do our avodas Hashem generally in Eretz Yisrael there's a big confusion. And the army situation is just a result of a general confusion that comes a long time before. And that confusion is based on, first of all, it all began a lot earlier. In other words, it began when there were religious people that embraced something secular, and that itself is is confusing. Exactly what it is, what exactly is it? I tend to always, with my Talmidim, they ask me about it, I say it's a confusing subject. There is clarity, we can get to clarity, but it requires a long, sidra of many different...
We're not going to get there in our podcast.
Definitely not here, but even generally speaking, I always tell Yeshiva Bachram that, it's not the number one that they have to, it takes a long time to develop and to explain. But there is a certain confusion. And this is like as a result of that confusion that originally when the state was established, so there were a lot of people that came from very good families that were enticed, and it was very attractive. It was a state, it was a new thing, and it was very exciting, especially after the Holocaust. It offered a new home, a homeland, with Jews for return to the homeland, and it sucked a lot of people in that, and there was a lot of people that came from religious homes that became secular, as a result. So the religious community in Eretz Yisrael became super protective over their children, over the society, because they felt they had to put a strong fence, because there were so many people who were just getting sucked into the new ideal. And it wasn't such an ideal from a Torah perspective back then. People don't understand that nowadays there's the right wing and the left wing. Back then it was basically all left wing, and they weren't very encouraging when it came to Torah mitzvahs. And there's so many youth, even from Yerushalayim. I spoke to people that told me that even places like Geula, just outside Meir She'arim, a large percentage just joined the army, joined the Haganah, whatever it was then, and they left. They went off the derech. So the Rabbanim in Eretz Yisrael have been super protective over the frum world, and they don't want the frum world, like they want to create like a buffer zone because of that problem, because there's this gray area over here that's speaking in terms of one hand, it's speaking in the name of religion. We have a homeland, we have Eretz Yisrael, we're back here in our homeland, and whatever. But on the other hand, it posed a lot of problems. And the army itself has posed a lot of problems. There's a large percentage of people that walked into the army from, came out not from. And even though there are religious units, it's not as simple as it is. And therefore they're very protective about, that's number one, about their children not going to the army. And, the second thing is, it's obvious, and everybody understands this, and I keep on hearing this, that people have heard this from secular people in Eretz Yisrael, that there's a lot of secular people in Eretz Yisrael that also recognize that we need yeshivas, and, the Bachram learning Torah in yeshiva is protecting the land, and they're also aware of that. There's a small group, which is a very small percentage in Eretz Yisrael, of the left-wingers, and they are stirring up a lot of trouble, and the majority don't even feel that way. There's a lot of very, very lot of secular Jews that are very proud that there's people learning Torah, and they feel and they encourage and they feel protected. They feel it's really a protection for them. And there's a lot of secular soldiers that have voiced this and have said this, that, please, Yeshiva Baruchim, learn Torah, because we know and we believe that this is helping us. So a lot has been stirred up by a small percentage of rebel rousers who are trying to stir up, trying to get this old machloikas that's settled on the ground, trying to stir it up again. But we all daven for the soldiers, and we all are aware that the families of the soldiers, there's a lot of parents not sleeping nights, that the children are on the front lines, and we feel for them, and we have to let them know we feel for them, and we have to be mechanach our children in a way, anything that comes like, oh, well, it's, you don't really have to think, it's not our society, it's not our thing, and you don't have to know, you don't have to feel for them. Obviously, that's not justified al pi Torah.
We'll be right back to my conversation with Rabbi Zucker, but you probably already know about PZ Deals, and it's the go-to app for saving big on the things that you actually want. Phones, sneakers, kitchen gadgets, and more. And I love this app. It's completely changed the way that I personally shop. Just tell it what you're looking for. AirPods, a Yeti tumbler, or even that Ninja ear fryer that everyone's talking about. When the price drops, bing, you get it instantly. No more endless searching and wasting your time on the internet, and no more overpaying. Last week, I grabbed a pair of Nikes for under $70, a Keurig for half price, and even got a set of premium luggage for a steal. PZ Deals finds it all. Stop wasting time, stop paying full price, and start saving today. Download PZ Deals app, we'll link it down below, and never pay full price again. Now, if you're like me, you love reading books and Sfarim on Shabbos. That's what I do. Well, our friends at Feldheim make it super easy to really love the written word of our people. Whether it's heavy topics like finding true happiness or kids' books, their selection is for you. The 3 new books in the L'chaim book club are here. First off, we got Zigawat Asks Why No. It's an adorable classic that I grew up on, and they now have an extended version. That's what I was holding. And your kids will love it. And honestly, you'll love it. It's a staple in every Jewish home. Next is my personal Feldheim favorite, Uncovering Sefer Yeshua, where Rabbi Landy literally traces for you the biblical land of Israel and shows where it is today. Easy to read, awesome photos, and it literally will help you contextualize the Torah. And of course, Rabbi Elio Dessler's Strive for Truth, Michtav Melio. It's a classic that helps you live a better life. It's heavy, but really translated well, and it has the potential to change your family forever. These 3 L'chaim Book Club books and any L'chaim Book Club books we mentioned in the past, Feldheim.com, you'll get 10% off with the code L'chaim. Take a look. Your shelf and soul will thank us. And of course, we'll link down below. We have giveaways in our special WhatsApp group for the L'chaim Book Club that I'm pretty sure you'll love. Now back to this week's episode. Shifting from Eretz Yisrael. There's a television show about people investing, and they go to these wealthy people and they try to get an investment out of them. And there's this farmer, and he has some product about planting, something revolutionary, and he's charging farmers $5. And all the investors are telling him, oh, you could easily charge $12. He said, yeah, but I charge $5 and I'm making $1, and the farmers can't really afford it. Maybe some can, but ultimately I'd rather just help. And all the investors were like, but you're crazy. You could be making so much more money. He's like, yeah, but what about the farmers? And then there was one investor said, I love what you're doing. And I think today they're worth like $100 million, something crazy like that. And he didn't raise the prices and kept it the way it is. And it seems that at least, I don't think just the frum world, I think in the world in general, like most people see that farmer and they think he's crazy. And they say like, well, you're crazy. You could make so much more money. Is that like a huge lacking that at least people in the business world, like it's seemingly, again, I don't know all, and I know there's a lot of tzedakah and a lot of things, but it's seemingly so selfish about like how people are going about business. Like they don't really, again, I could be wrong, and I don't know if it's all, but that's the vibes that it feels like in general, that we're maybe being too selfish when it comes to parnasa or just how we go about our lives. Of course, there's a balance. You have to like look out for yourself, but are we doing that too much?
So a person, a person has to know that working is, number one, he has to know that working is a klala, that Adam Rishon was cursed. It's a pasuk in, a person has to provide livelihood for his family. A person that feels that Baruch Hashem, his business is going well, so it's good that he should develop the business, so that he should be able to provide for his family, he should be able to give tzedakah. A person obviously has to realize, and that's something also that this generation is it's a big nesoim for this generation, because there's people that have, are greedy to become billionaires. When are they ever going to spend so much money? And it's a means of giving tzedakah. I've just come from England. There's a family in England, not saying their name, but they're mega wealthy, and he's a Rosh Hashiva, and he gives a share every morning, 2 shiurim every morning, and he goes to the office in the afternoon. A person can make a big Kiddush Hashem, a working person. And the biggest Kiddush Hashem in today's day and age is when a person doesn't get sucked into the world. When you see that this person, I remember when I was in Gates at Yeshiva, Mr. Moshe Reichman, Zechayin Levracha, Paul Reichman, his son was learning in Yeshiva, and he came to Gates for Shabbos to be with his son. He came on Shabbos and he sat and learned. It was beautiful to see. It was a Kiddush Hashem. He sat and learned as if he's a koil younger man. It's a beautiful potential of making a big Kiddush Hashem. But it doesn't mean that this is now my, like I don't have to learn on Sundays anymore. I don't have to learn on Shabbos. I'm a businessman, and therefore my kviyas itim Torah is that I have a share of mishnayos between Mincha Maariv. Every person is v'gisa b'yom elet. Every person should learn as much as he can. We're not those tzaddikim like the Chavetz Chaim that as soon as you earned enough money for today, they close the store. But a person has to know that he mustn't get carried away. It mustn't become his life. Years clock by, and then a person looks back, and then midlife crisis. A big businessman are famous for suffering from midlife crisis, because they look back and they see that they were just sucked in, and the years just ticked by, and they're middle aged, and they're looking back and they say, "What exactly did I do? I've got a lot of money, Baruch Hashem, but what exactly have I done in my life?" A person's got to be in control. A businessman has to know that there's a chakras. And even when there's a bacha choosing a career in life, he has to be very careful that this career is not a career. If he knows that from the beginning that this career is going to blow him and there's going to be years where he won't be able to dam minyanim and he won't be able to this and he's going to have to rush, he better, choose a different career. A person's got to know that there's a shachris and there is an kvias itim Torah, best in the morning when his mind is fresh. And, I would say that a Kiddush Hashem is somebody that gets up, he davens shachris properly, he learns an hour and a half before he goes out to work, then he works a full day, and he comes back, and he has, if he can learn another hour in the evening. When it comes to a Sunday, he works more hours. It comes to a Shabbos, where he's happy that the office is closed and all the machines are off, and he feels dedicated to Torah and to Avodah and to Chesed, etc. That's a walk in Kiddush Hashem. Today, there's a big sign of people that just become workaholics, and they get swept away. And, that's a problem. And it's selfish, greedy, whatever it is. A person's got to be very careful. I know it's a very big sign. And especially in America, where the cost of living is so much, and a person's got to earn so much in order just to stay afloat. And that requires very often people to have to work many, many hours, 12 hours, 14 hours, and then eventually it becomes their thing and it becomes their life and it overtakes them. And that's, it's a big problem. It's a big nisayon. And every person in his own avodah has got to try to do his best to make sure that he retains what he is. He has to remember that he has a wife. He has to remember that he has children. He has to remember that there's Torah mitzvahs and there's a Shabbos and there's a Yom Tov. And he has to incorporate that into his life and not get swept away into his work. And, that's what matters.
I think since Adam, it's always been complicated to raise children. But today's day and age, with things getting in certain ways gray, depending where someone lives, raising children could be more complicated. What advice, and again, I know we don't have 7 hours over here, but what advice does the Rav have about raising children?
It's not could be complicated. It is a lot more complicated. Okay. It is a lot more complicated. And definitely number one is a person has to move to a more protected society. And this is the big debate going on over here. If you're overprotective of your children, they'll break out and then it'll be hefka. If you allow them exposure, then who knows where they're going to end up. It's a balance, and that definitely will take 7 hours. So we want to talk about that in the Kuda. But a person has to give his child a more protective environment, live in an environment, send him to a school, a cheder, where the children are more protected. The homes that his kids are going to go and play are definitely more protected. And, and above all, technology aside, because it's a separate, independent subject, which obviously a person's got to try and control, what access his child has to technology. But putting technology aside, it's part of what we're just discussing. Very often a father comes home. A couple of years ago, I was walking Erev Shabbos to Eish Kodesh here in Woodmere, and it's right next to the train station. So I was walking there, half an hour before, 40 minutes before Mincha, and the train stops, and there's a lot of Yidden that get off the train and they're going home. And 20 minutes later, they're in the week they close. 20 minutes later, they're in shul. In order to succeed in chinuch, is the home has to be a home that shows interest, that shows passion, that shows simcha, that shows excitement. A lot of fathers are working very hard. So it comes out Friday night, especially in the summer. They're exhausted. They're falling asleep in the middle of the meal. And a child, there's got to be a lot of simcha in the house, and the parents have to be role model of simcha in ruchnius. If a father has an opportunity to go and learn in a Beis Medrash in the evening, and he can learn at home when his kids are at home, and he has a study where he can learn and focus, it's a big mitzvah to learn and to study, to learn at home, to give the children to be the role model example of living Torah and living Yiddishkeit. The same thing as with the father, same thing as the mother. Another nakuda is that a lot of parents put pressure on their children to be the tops. And it doesn't work. It doesn't always work. A person's got to be very careful. And nowadays in today's society, where there's so many kids who are problematic, is a person's got to be very, very grateful if he can keep his kid, keep his child. Even if his child, he doesn't have to always push his child to get into the best yeshiva. He doesn't have to. If he sees his child as a bar hochi, he sees his child. I had us now I have a Talmud, a close Talmud in Bet Shemesh, and his child is really, really passionate. And he's learning, and he's really, Baruch Hashem, he had a big siyata d'shmaya with his child. His son looks at tzaddik. And there was 2 yeshiva gdolas. He's finishing yeshiva tana, 2 yeshiva gdolas, and his son's desperate to go to the yeshiva gdola, the better one, the more spitzy one, the better one. And and he told me that he spoke to somebody. The person said, "No, not good. It's too much pressure over there." But his son wants that pressure, and they said, "No, son maybe a bit more sensitive and a bit more, he might break under the pressure. It's got to be healthy. You got to encourage. It's got to be healthy, and you got to make a siyum over small accomplishments, and you have to build your son to enjoy it from a young age already. And the person's got to know their children. My Zaidi, Rabbi Shimshon Raphael Hirsch, says a very sharp word. Vayigdlu hanaorim. He says Yaakov Avinu waited until the kids were grown up already. And then it was too late already. Esau was a Ish Yedeh side, and Yaakov was Yaakov. But a person's got to see their children from a young age. And if they see the children you can recognize the children, sometimes they're more difficult for them academically, more difficult for them to sit down. So Chanoich Lanar Pidarkoi. He has to go through a system. You want him to learn in yeshiva, but you don't necessarily. A lot of kids went to average yeshivas and they did great over there. And they were on the high end of the yeshiva, and it was very healthy and very, very good for them. So there should be a lot of simcha in the house, a lot of encouragement, and the children should get prizes for accomplishments in Mishnayos and Chumash, whatever it is, but without pushing them, without putting pressure on them. The child should never feel that he's not living up to his parents' expectations, because that's very difficult. And if a parent knows that the child is not going to be the tops, they shouldn't try and push it, and they shouldn't try to give the child a feeling that they're discouraged and they're disappointed by him, because that can be very, 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 very damaging.
One of the, I think, big struggles of like living a frum life is the more you get into ruchnias and Torah and davening, like there's something to it that your neshama like wants to connect, but then also you're reminded, whether it's, at least in America, like finances or responsibilities, and like you also have to, you're lemaisa, you're a human, like the Rav mentioned, like we have a klala that we have to work. How does one bridge those two worlds of like living ruchnias, but also being in gashmias? How do we meld those two things? Yeah,
so first of all, a person's got to, like we said, a person's got to live in a Torah society, living around a yeshiva, living around, and belonging to a very Torah-dika kehillah, even if a person's a working person. And that people are realizing today, and they are encouraging it. And there are a lot of people. I have a lot of Talmidim even here in Woodmere that are working people, and they live around the Yeshiva 5 towns, and they really feel very much part of it. And that's a piece of good advice is for the person to get up early. To go to sleep early at night, to get up early in the morning. And when a person has a good hour and a half learning, 2 hours of learning, an hour, whatever, and a good davening before he sets off to work, he goes to work like a ben Torah. A person whose main learning is done in the afternoon, where he comes home so exhausted, is and the other thing, like I said, is a Shabbos and a Sunday. A person who should try to come back Erev Shabbos, Friday, work from home or something like that, and the work should be very minimal. And Shabbos is Shabbos, and a person should feel when it comes to Shabbos, he should feel I'm not a working person. A person comes to Shabbos, a person should feel that Ba Shabbos Ba Menucha. That's the klal of Melachtacha Asuya, that you have to feel that everything is done. I don't have to think of my work. And also when it comes to a Sunday, there is actually a Ben Ish Chai, I think it says that when a person goes to Shemayim and Hashem asks him why didn't you learn? Well, so he's going to say I was working. He says, what about the Sundays? You weren't working. How much did you learn on a Sunday? A person who can build himself a schedule on Sunday. Again, somebody who's a working person, it's hard for him. He's not going to sit and learn the whole day Sunday. Some people can do it. Many people cannot do it. But at least to increase, and to at least if a person understands that, I remember my wife's from Belgium. I remember I used to spend the summers in Antwerp, and the diamond boss where all the Yidden work is near a shul. And I remember there's a Yid, he's still alive, he should be well. And I remember he used to come like 5 times in the middle of the day. I used to sit in the shul there during the day. My kids were in camp over there. My wife was with the parents. They sit in shul there, and used to come multiple times in the middle of the day to learn for half an hour, to learn for 40 minutes. It's close. It's a bike ride. And he used to come, and this person is, this is a real ben Torah.
Wow. My favorite part with Rabbi Zucker is coming up, but let's be real. Building custom software sounds intimidating, but with BitBean, it is the opposite. These guys aren't just brilliant at what they do. They're genuinely nice, easy to work with, and completely invested in your success. From the first conversation, you will see they're not just like any other tech company. They listen, they understand your business, and they know how to build custom solutions that actually work for you. No overcomplicated process, just smart, strategic software that helps you scale, streamline, and stay ahead. I've spoken to their team, and trust me, they care. They want you to win, and they'll go the extra mile to make sure your business thrives. If you're even thinking about how tech can take your company to the next level, BitBean is the partner you want. Reach out to them today, and you won't get software. You'll get a team that gets your back. and also awesome software. And before we jump right back in, I need to tell you all about my ear bomber. I'm wearing it right now. It's this like sweater that I'm wearing. It is this sweater that's as elegant as it is sporty and comfortable as it is stylish. It's lightweight, breathable, and perfect for any occasion, whether you're dressing it up for a meeting or throwing it on for a night out. I wear mine all week long. Yes, all the guys in Mechabura, I'm always wearing it. It moves with me, keeps me cool, and never feels bulky. If you want a sweater that looks sharp without sacrificing comfort, this is it. And here's the deal. Get $80 off your first order of $139 or more. Twillory.com with the code word, you guessed it, inspire. Trust me, you'll love it. It's like the ear suit. It's like see-through. It's awesome. Take a look, and I'm pretty sure you'll like it. Now, back to this week's episode. I once saw this idea that someone was asked by a non-Jew to describe what Yiddishkeit, what Judaism is. And the person thought for a second, and they responded that it all comes down to a relationship between a person and Hashem. That's what it is. Would the Rav be maskim to that? And how would the Rav define our Father, Hashem, like how our connection to him?
To a goy or to a between us? There's very minimal understanding that you can.
I think between us.
So first of all, every person, tefillah, that's another important note on tefillah. Tefillah is developing the relationship. A person's got to work very hard on tefillah. Tefillah is relationship. If a person has a relationship when it comes to davening, he has a relationship when it comes to learning. It's a relationship in every area of avodah. But it's got to go along with tefillah. Tefillah is building a relationship, and when you talk about, especially when you Pesukah de Zimra, you see how passionate David HaMelech was about Yiddishkeit. And a person's got to be up early. By us, we learn before davening. We come into davening ready. We're coming to davening talking to our Father. Baruch Ata. We're talking. It's the closest relationship you can have. Is a feeling of Baruch Ata. Do we know what we're saying when we say the words Baruch Ata Hashem? Actually talking to Hashem in first person. Takes avodah. Takes a person's got to learn about tefillah, read svarim about tefillah, but it's all totally on tefillah. If a person feels tefillah, he has the closest relationship in everything. Torah is also the closest relationship. But tefillah is got to be built through tefillah. And the biggest tzaddikim said that they felt the difference in Torah, whether they had a good tefillah or not. The Heilige Rebbe Jensen Eibeshit said that he feels different when he had a good tefillah. He feels his learning during the day is different. The relationship is built mostly through tefillah.
I want to ask the Rav about his relationship with, I don't know how to say his name properly, the Amshn of a Rebbe. I think most people listening, they know of him, but they don't know much about him. Like, actually.
It'll take more than 7 hours.
But, I don't know much. Like, he's famous for having a 3-day Yom Kippur and very long Shabbosim. And
I'll tell you what I saw in him. I mean, this is what, what definitely led me to him. He's built Hashem levadai. In other words, you spoke before about Avos Yisrael. His Ava, we didn't actually end up speaking.
Yeah, well, we can go back to it.
His Avos Yisrael knows no bounds. He's pashat. There's no himself in his life. His davening, his learning, his ben adam lechaveroi. I mean, most of it. I don't know. It's difficult to say most of it because he's alone. He's alone most of the time, so nobody monitors him. But he's busy a large part of his life in helping Am Yisrael. His Avos Yisrael is not even to his Hasidim, not even to anybody, to any Jew in the world, is equal to him and even to him. And he just has a mysterious nefesh for his avodas Hashem. His davening, he has a mysterious nefesh. He davens for hours. When he learns, he can learn for 12, 13, 14 hours in a stretch. And he can spend hours over Rashi, and he's trying harder and harder, and he's pushing himself and he's pushing himself. His whole life, is, he doesn't have his own personal individual life. It's all lo nivresi ela l'sham mishes koini. It's all bilti l'Hashem levada. He hasn't got anything, all this idea that he doesn't daven on time. He holds himself to be a poshea, that he doesn't daven on time. But the reason why he doesn't daven on time is because he's helping so many other Yidden, is because, because his whole schedule. So, and yet that's on his own cheshbon. It's not that he justifies everything he's doing. He feels very bad about it, but his whole is bilti l'Hashem levada. He's got nothing, no personal gain, no negias in anything in his life. He's the most modest person. His humility is just mind-boggling. I mean, everything about him is just mind-boggling. But the concept of Bilti Lashem Lavadai by him is something which is when you see Rabbi Shmuel, son of Chaim Shmulevitz, once saw him at Al Chasana, and he said, I was looking at him, and one thing I can tell you, that he's with Hashem all the time. Like even when he's at a chasna, he's in a different place. He's shakua, he's engrossed in something, and he's connected to Hashem in every minute and every second of his life. So it's a big madrega that we're nowhere near, but it's an amazing gift for the generation just to see such a concept of somebody that's kol kulei Hashem.
Is it weird to say that I feel like he's from like a few generations ago, but he happens to be in 2024?
No, it's not weird at all. Many tzaddikim have said that about him.
Wow.
There was a tzaddik, Ramosha Matcha Leleva, who was the grandfather to the Rebbe. It was like, the generation was very close to the Baba Sali, a very, very great man. Ramosha is the Rav Grossman from Migdalemik, his Rebbe. And when he was an old man, when he was in the 80s, and Amshnav Rebbe was still a very young man, said that what I remember from my youth, he was by a big tzaddik in Ramosh Matcha. He said, this is a big chiddush. This is not something that you see. Not something that you see. It's a tzaddik of somebody who would have been considered a tzaddik a while ago.
I want to get back into what we were talking about before, Ahavas Yisrael. The Rav's take on, again, similar like we keep on saying that we don't have all the time in the world, but I want the Rav's take on the Ahavas Yisrael.
Yes, I mean, first of all, obviously, Ahavas Yisrael, V'after Recha Kamoicha. The big question of an Ahavas Yisrael is obviously when it comes to people less religious, people from different societies, people, that's where the real debate begins. And, today it's so clear, in today's day and age, it's so clear that the neshamas of so many people are thirsty. I mean, in the shul, we do, in the secular schools around the shul, and once a week, some people from the Kehillah go into the schools. We got into the schools and they come, and they were boys that, that you could see the pain, see the thirst, and you could see the thirst and see the pain in them. They just wanted it. They're so, they have no chinuch, they have no nothing. The Ahavas Yisrael comes along with an emunah. You have to be ma'amin b'emunah shlema that every Yid wants it so badly. And, whatever he looks like, you have to know that there's such a pnimius that's so thirsty for it. And our generation is really coming out because they've tried everything else and they've gone so low in where they've tried that they're from now they can just go up and they're just thirsty and they're passionate. They really want help. Person's got to focus on their neshama. When it comes to amongst the frum people themselves, it's obviously something that needs a lot of chizik. It's obviously some of the Yetzer Hara is working very strong. The Beis HaMikdash was destroyed. It was sinas chinam, and he really doesn't want the Beis HaMikdash to be rebuilt. It's going to be rebuilt based on avas chinam and rectifying what it was destroyed for. So, that's why it stirs up a lot of, a Yid has to know that there's other deis, and there's different segments, as long as it's all up Shulchan Aruch, and there's different gedolim, and there's different, there's different tzaddikim, there's different goinim, different talmidei chachamim, and the person's got to feel an authentic Ahavas Yisrael for everybody, mamish v'ahavta re'acha kamoicha. And, most of the lack of Ahavas Yisrael today is over very shallow things. If a person would think deeper, but he's a Yid, especially in the Frumo, but he's a Frum Yid. He's allowed to think differently than me. He's allowed to, even Gedolim, even the Gedolim that came to America, each one had his own tachlis, each one had his own tafkid. Each one, one built this, one built the other, one built Torah, one built an infrastructure of moistus, one built, like bringing the feeling of Europe into America. Everybody was busy with their avodah, and it's, they were all tzaddikim, kulam ahovim, kulam berurim. And, it's so vital. We need, obviously, Israel, there's so many challenges that we need everybody to work together.
Really beautiful. And then I guess that it's represented with the Shvatim. They're also different. They each have different missions and the different aspects that they brought.
That's right. So again, within the Yiddish world, Am Yisrael has to work very hard just to put aside all the shallow machlokas and really focus and concentrate that we're really all one. And and in terms of the secular world, 90% or more than 90%, Yiddish are thirsty and they're coming back. And, we need to reach out to them. We really, really need to reach out to them. And every organization that's reaching out is successful and has siyata d'shmaya. And that's coming from, Avos Hashem. We have to share. It's not just seeing a person goes to Chas v'Shalom to visit somebody that's sick in hospital. Spiritual sickness is far more serious. The Heilige Klozing Rebbe used to say that, so many people, there's chesed organizations that take food to hospitals, and it's unbelievable. So many chesed organizations. He said, Klozing Rebbe once said, he says, you take somebody that doesn't learn, you learn with him. you're also healing him. It's no less of an Avos Yisrael. You're helping him. We have to help Am Yisrael. We have to help Am Yisrael. We're close to the Geula. And, Klal Yisrael is coming back. It's an Achsha Dara where we see that Am Yisrael is coming back. I'm saying even in Eretz Yisrael, after when the state was founded, there was a lot of anti. Today, there's so little of it. Today, it's just they don't know anything. And, you get them going. You talk to them. They're so willing to hear. It's an achrayus. It's a responsibility of everybody to do. Not everybody has to move out, but to do something. Like in the shul, we have a shul, and around the shul there's a few secular schools within a radius of 5-minute walk. So we're doing something, and it's helping. And there's a lot of people that come and they learn. And they put tefillin on, and we have pizza for them. And we're doing. And some of them came to Shalat 2 Shabbos, a few Shabbos ago. A lot of them came for a Shabbos, and they kept Shabbos. And it's there's so much to do.
Wow.
You need us to feel another Jew's pain, the physical pain, obviously, and the spiritual pain even more.
And I just want to clarify, wrapping tefillin, and you're not Chabad, which is very popular among Chabad, but I know the Rav had some sort of connection with the Lubavitcher Rebbe.
I was by the Lubavitcher Rebbe for Shabbos once, and when I came to Eretz Yisrael, I became very close to a big tzaddik, Rabbi Weber, Zecher Tzaddik, Kodesh Levracha, and he was one of the Gedolei Hador by all standards, by everybody. And, the Lubavitcher Rebbe is a symbol of somebody that also, like we spoke before about the Amshnover Rebbe, is somebody that gave his whole life for Am Yisrael. He was mafkir, he was mafkir himself, begashmias and beruchnis. He never went anywhere, and he sat in his room for most of the 24 hours around the clock. And I think there's a big lack of, today there's a lot of people that don't know very much about him. And, if people would open his letters and see how many tens of thousands of letters or hundreds of thousands of letters, just to be Makar of Ad Yidden, just to bring Torah to Ad Yidden. He had his passion, he had his way of doing things. And like we said earlier, not all Gedolim have to agree with how you do things, whatever. But the fact that he was on a tremendous Talmid Chacham, the fact that he was mafkir his life, didn't go anywhere on vacation, and he was busy most of 24 hours with Kutcha Bricha, Raisev Yisrael Chadahu. And, that's something that a person's just got to research. Has got to see it. And, and he opened a lot of things he broke through a lot of areas that a lot of other people have adapted today to. And when he first was breaking through that, people didn't understand it, and people were sharply opposed to it. Number one, Kiruv, which is popular today amongst everybody. And when he came out with the idea of Kiruv, a lot of people were very strongly opposed to it. And even within his own Hasidim, people were opposed to it. But, it has to be understood that, after the war, coming to America, there was two different ways. There's two different opinions, two different mahalchim. What's the mahalach now post Holocaust? A lot of Gedolim held that just rebuild Europe again, and he held, or started from his father already. He held that after the Holocaust, we're getting ready for Yemei Mashiach, and it's a different time, it's a different era. To every Gadol has his innovation, has his insight. But dealing especially in the modern Orthodox world, and the years I spent in Asia Torah, and Bichlal and seeing the world, seeing the worlds, and today in the Mesiras Nefesh of the Shluchim is world renowned. And I remember, years ago in India, in Mumbai, when they were murdered, people said, "Wow!" And they started hearing that there was Amish, a Beis Chabad there in Mumbai, and there was Jews that were coming. They heard about it, didn't really know, is this really reality? And these are thousands and thousands and thousands of centers around the world with people who are Moshe Nefesh, sending their kids away very young, having to wait for months to be able to eat a bit of fleishig or to eat a chol of Yisrael, and real Mesiras Nefesh in dangerous places, as Nebuch was, was a recent story, and it's a real authentic Mesiras Nefesh, and the biggest, the proof is always, the Rebbe passed away. And the organization is just flourishing. It's flourishing. It's fine. It's a real thing. It's a real thing. And there was a lot of Gedolim, a lot of Gedolim that held very, very obviously very highly held that he was. I personally heard from somebody who was very close to the Chazon Ish, who was one of the Lamavav Tzadikim, and Rabbi Shmuel Zucker, and also heard it from him. Said he was mamish. Him and his father-in-law were the Tzadikei Hador. In other words, his impact on the Dor was. I mean, who can question or challenge the impact he had on the Dor? Does every Gadol have to agree with the way he did his things, the way it does the care? Everybody's entitled to their opinions. They're entitled to agree with it or not agree with it. As a Gavra, as a person, obviously there's a lot of people in Chabad today that are not exactly doing the job the way he would have liked to see it done. and sometimes they cause, a certain feeling that people feel about them, which they feel it reflects on the Rebbe. But anybody that knows anything about the Rebbe knows that he was a Kaddish and he was a Zoch, and there's a lot of stories. He had a koch to give brachas, and he was a Ish Kaddish ad Moed, and he gave his life up. Kol yemei chayecha lahavi l'moisa Mashiach.
What was that Shabbos like for you?
It was very special. I was a bacher in the mirror then, and I came to America for a chasna of a friend, and it was very special. It was very special to see. It was a very special experience. But also his Torah is lechtig. His Torah is beautiful. And you go to the oil over here. I mean, it's bustling. It's bustling, and you have all types of people there. And the place is always full. There's hundreds or thousands of kvitlach in there. Anytime you go there, it's not pashut. Somebody that follows his life, somebody that researches and sees his life was a life of a pella.
I'm also, again, just so curious about your relationship with Rabbi Shmuel, because you knew him from childhood, and when you both weren't Hasidish, and now looking at where he is today, and
well, he was Hasidish.
He was always Hasidish.
His father was clean shaven, but his father took him to the Beis Yisrael. The family had shaykhs to Ger Hasidim, and he was. I mean, till he was 20, he went with a short jacket. He went with a turned down hat. But there definitely was the family definitely had a kesha to Hasidish guys. Father used to go to the Beis Yisrael, left Simcha. His father held himself as a Ger Chassid. But I knew him from day one, from Cheder, and that's why I'm Zocher still to know him, because he hasn't changed. He was Kaddish then, he's Kaddish today, and he's a neshama. He's a very big neshama. From a very, very young age, he was Horish from Olam Hazeh completely. And he comes from a very comfortable family, and Irish from Olam Hazeh, and not in a frightening way. Just he was somewhere else, very young age already. He was gates of yeshiva already. He had this passion to Kabbalah. I know it was coming from somewhere, and he's still doing it. It's not something. It wasn't something that came and it crashed, and right.
It wasn't a fad.
No. He's a big neshama, very big neshama.
Wow, I think one of the most underratedly hard jobs out there, if we call it a job, is being a Rav. Unfortunately, you have to hear and deal with all the tsaros going on and try to be the glue and give chizik to people. I'm curious personally, and maybe we'll end with this. What's the biggest challenge that the Rav has to go through as being a Rav? What's the hardest part about being a Rav?
All hard.
No, but for you, I feel like every Rav would have a different answer. It's a very personal answer.
Yeah, for sure. It's very time consuming, a lot more than people know. A lot of things that have to go on behind the scenes. Obviously sensitive areas, on bias, that type of thing. Very, very time consuming. And it pulls you down a lot to hear a lot of stories. It pulls you down. Sometimes feel it. I've got this on my mind, I've got these things on my mind, and it's hard to just to get it off your mind. It's a very big sign. That's besides the fact that I live far from the shul. And Shabbos, I spend most of my Shabbos either walking there or walking back. Or
how long is the walk?
It's like a 40-minute walk, 40-minute walk. So on the way back is a steep uphill, and it's a long davening, and it takes Baruch Hashem a long time for people to go around to say good Shabbos. And it's basically my whole Shabbos revolves around that. But when you see Baruch Hashem, you're helping people, and see the Siyata D'Shmaya of what it's done. Impact that it's had on the world, not just the Kehillah. It's had a tremendous impact on the world, and everybody's hearing this all the time. It's just, and that's being an Am Shalom Chassid made it a lot easier for myself. And I'll share a story with you, something that I asked Am Shalom once. On a story, I asked Am Shalom once. I was teaching in 3 yeshivas, teaching 4 masechtas, and I felt I couldn't do it anymore. And I went to ask the Rebbe, and the Rebbe said, "Why not?" I said, "It's a ton of preparing." So it was in the winter. The Rebbe says, "Well, you have 4 hours, not so Shabbos, to prepare a lot of shiurim, and so you're teaching 4 yeshivas. So, perhaps you can even add something on the schedule." He's somebody that helped Klal Yisrael and spends his whole life at Me'av Esrim. He just doesn't have time for himself. The Lubavitcher Rebbe, before he became Rebbe, he was a very private person, and very private. He wasn't talkative. He wasn't sociable. Switch that he made in his life. Me personally, I'm sociable, but I enjoy own time, learning, enjoy closing myself up. And I haven't got the time to do that very often. It's heavily taxing on me. But on the other hand, I know that it's helping so many people. I know when I look at the individuals in the Kehillah, see how far they've come. I look at the whole Kehillah in general, what a Kiddush Hashem it is to the world. How many people that live in the area that have told me that they would like to daven, but they can't do that to the rov of the other shul, but they bring their kids after their davening just to sit in the shul for a few minutes just to see the davening. So, what we're all about is obviously Yisrael. What we're all about is, not being selfish. And what the tzaddikim, especially in the Hasidic world, taught us that Mesiras Nefesh doesn't mean lacking sleep or lacking food. The biggest Mesiras Nefesh is where you give up to a degree. You got to remain sane. But to give up in a degree, you're ruchni as well to help other people. And it's not necessarily giving up. You don't lose as a result. It's an avodah of ruchnis. We're taking care of the Rabban Shalom's children. And, I think that's the time and the draining to hear a lot. It's very draining. But, I always look at it. I said, the Rabban Shalom built this for us. And it's really the Siyata Shema is super, is l'malam min hateva. So it seems like Siyata Shema is giving nachas ruach to Hashem. That's what matters. That's what matters. Rabbi David Abba Chatzera once told me, he said that he told me the Chasam Sofer was very busy with his Freshberg and with Shiva, and he also was lacking in his own time. And he was busy for 24 years with the very Kehillah. I don't remember which order the story was. Rabbi David Chatzera talks very fast, but he became very sick, and he was al eres davai. He was basically on his deathbed, and he miraculously recovered and lived another 24 years exactly. In other words, Rabbi David, Rabban Shalom will, he has a cheshbon for everything. It's a big schus to be able to be a shoris, to be able to be an Eved Hashem, to be able to do what we can to help Klal Yisrael and to lift Klal Yisrael. And, HaKadosh Baruch Hu should help us that we should be zecha to, in these final moments, to go back to Eretz Yisrael with the whole Am Yisrael, with Bias Mashiach Tzedkeinu Meher B'Yameinu Amen.
Amen. Shkayach. Thank you. Okay,
it's been a pleasure. And
it's been great.
You should have us at Siyata D'Shmaya and Hatzlacha in what you're doing.
Amen.
I can't use a computer. So I don't have email and I don't know how to use a computer. So thank you very much for
thank you
for being the shliach over here at the Shliach Tzibur to
the honor is I appreciate it. Thank you. If you got this far in the episode, please tell us the word remarkable in the comments, because that's what this episode is. Or again, nothing I did, but Rabbi Zucker is remarkable and what he had to say is amazing. It's funny, it's easy to glamorize the big moments in our lives, but what about the day in, day out small stuff? That's really where the true greatness lies. I want to thank again our sponsors, BitBean. You guys are awesome, great software, great people. Twillory, awesome clothing, and legit, their ear bomber is awesome. Feldheim's 10% off deal that you could get with the code word INSPIRE at feldheim.com on the 3 books that I mentioned. Of course, PZ Deals, the best app for never paying full price again. And if you're watching this still at this point, go ahead and rate us 5 stars on Spotify or Apple Podcasts. If you haven't yet, it will help more people hear our podcast, and it means the world to us. Stay kosher. Inspiration is everywhere. L'chaim. Living L'chaim.